Hello, DragonCon. This is Jessica. I am here with Robert Lloyd, and he actually just got finished doing a panel as a part of the Comics and Pop Arts Conference, which I had no idea was going on here at DragonCon. Can you tell us a little bit about the conference before we get into the details of your panel?
Well, I can tell you a little bit. I know it's been going on for several years, and it's overall an attempt to bring a more scientific, a more scholastic take on some of these fun things that we're into, but still keeping the fun parts.
Yeah, I was looking at the list because it's spread out over, we've got comics track, we've got animation, we've got games, we've got Trek track, the Brit track, obviously, with all the Doctor Who stuff. And it's a really interesting program because it's actually bringing academics doing academic research, which I know you are a grad student at Georgia State University.
That's right. I'm in the anthropology master's program at Georgia State right now.
So I have to ask you, what exactly is anthropology?
Well, anthropology is the study of humanity, any aspect of humanity. And my specialty is cultural anthropology, which looks at the shared beliefs, symbols, attitudes of the people within a particular culture or subculture.
So, of course, DragonCon is perfect and right up the alley for that.
Well, yeah, definitely, because you've got what's often called nerd culture, but then you have all the different cultures that the people attending come from as well. So everyone brings their own unique take on it, but then we also sort of meet in the middle and enjoy these shared worlds together, these shared fantastical worlds.
Tell me just a little brief synopsis of what you were presenting today.
Yeah, well, today's presentation was the economics of Star Trek. You know, one of the sort of linchpins of the Star Trek fiction is that the United Federation of Planets, where Kirk and Spock and everybody operates, is a post-scarcity economy. They've eliminated greed, they've eliminated poverty, and a world like that would be so different from the world that we inhabit that it's kind of fun to pick it apart and see, what aspects of it might have some parallel in reality, what aspects of it might be completely unworkable, and where it does sort of match reality, how we might actually be working towards something like that. There's this thing going on in Star Trek of where some people say they don't use money, but then you see things like money being used. So yeah, there's this idea of a Federation credit. That's not money, but maybe a little like it. So in what ways is it like money, and in what ways is it different? That's one of the things I try to get at. Is there's so much Star Trek out there. And mostly it's not about economics. It's about them having conflicts with other species and making discoveries and so forth. But there are little things that we can pick out in there if we scour it enough. And we can pick out those little things and sort of compare them to tropes in the actual modern human world. So as you say, there are indications that at least some aspects of our economy are getting to be more of a sharing economy, or more of a reputational economy, or that, not so much that we're not using money, but we're not using currency quite so much. Or we're using forms of money that aren't necessarily like the forms of money we've been using. Something like Bitcoins might be a good example. It's early days for those yet, but who knows what that'll develop into.
Were there any questions that surprised you or really got you thinking that came out of the audience today?
One great point that somebody brought up that I wish we had more time to explore was the fact that we only tend to see the high achievers in the Star Trek world, the Starfleet people. And maybe the lip service that someone like Captain Picard gives to how great that society is, maybe there are other people who don't think it's so great, or maybe there are other people who haven't done as good a job of getting the prestige that the Starfleet people have. There's probably a lot of texture in the Star Trek world that the TV show, again, for dramatic reasons, just never really gets into, but maybe sometimes sort of hints at.
Yeah, that is true, because somebody I do remember brought up the idea of, obviously Picard was an archaeologist before he became a Starfleet captain, which, as an archaeologist, I absolutely love.
Right.
But there was Vash. Vash kept trying to steal the artifacts and sell them, so there's obviously some sort of value-based system going on that's outside of the almost socialist idealism of the Starfleet system. So it is definitely nuanced and layered and interesting, and I thought it was great that people in the audience were bringing things up like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As you say, there was a lot of enthusiasm, frankly more enthusiasm for this topic than I sort of anticipated.
The room was full.
Yeah, so that was hugely gratifying, but another aspect of it is to see, just how smart people are. how much thought people put into these questions, formulating their own answers to them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to land on a right answer. That's a long process that involves input from a lot of people. But folks like to turn these ideas over in their heads and take them apart and see how they might operate. And that's really, even in the real world, talking about a fictional subject, that's how we get progress in the world, I think.
Definitely through discussion and working together as a group.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that today, a lot of optimism. It was really interesting to see.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's so cool that we're actually able to do that with the Comics and Popular Arts Conference that's inside of DragonCon. That's amazing. So for more information on the Comics and Popular Arts Conference, go to comicspopularartsconference.org. They do take paper submissions. It is a peer-reviewed process. I'm definitely going to look into this next year. They do all sorts of interesting programming. So, Robert, thank you so much for your time. That was an amazing lecture. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.